It is rather difficult to speak after Rebecca, I think, either for Georgi or for me. Of course, I did prepare a speech, but I think that we have just few minutes, and in those few minutes, I just would like to raise 2 or 3 points that I think are essential and that actually link what Georgi was saying about the Budapest Center activities and actually what Rebecca inspired us. And this is the European Union framework. I mean, you've been speaking a lot about the international dimension, and you touched upon an experience that is the one of Darfur that I lived myself. I was living in Darfur between 2003 and 2004. I was in a mission with Mukesh Kapila when we went to Niala to see that, and since then I was an expert in Sudan working on something completely different. That was the IDP rehabilitation and repatriation in the context of the CPA agreement between North and South Sudan, and suddenly I entered into another word that was genocide. It did touch me a lot. It did push me a lot into thinking that the creation of a Budapest center or a center for the prevention of genocide and mass atrocities was really needed, because actually we all know, as you mentioned as well, that the convention is spurious in terms of institutional background. We have a convention that actually did not urge for anything like an institution to take care of the implementation of the convention itself. And so we actually, thanks to civil society, we got into the setting up of the ICC, which I think that is tremendously important. And maybe to counteract on what you said, I think that it's true what you said about the black skin that is judged at the ICC. But the argument, also speaking with Moreno Campo for many years, is that that's the achievement of Africa. That the Africans have asked themselves that they wanted their own leaders to be pursued by the ICC. We do know that the ICC is complementary, it's not priority as what instead was the court of Yugoslavia, or where the courts are in Rwanda. Backing on Africa, just let me point out something that I think that is a true achievement and that links us to the whole concept of the responsibility to protect. That is the fact that on the 6th of December, we seen and experienced the adoption of the very first convention on the protection of the IDPs. The IDPs, the internally displaced persons, are one of the most targeted groups that deal with genocide issues and with R2P crimes in general. The fact that we did not have any convention, any rule on their protection was something that was allowing a lot international governments to pursue them or to mistreat them. I do believe in the fact, and that's maybe why I'm a professor of international law as well, I do believe in laws, I do believe in regulations, I do believe in the fact that we do have, we can see the world as a big game. I mean, is a game, and the rules of the games are the international legal treaties. One of them just came to power and is an experiment that came from Africa, as the concept of responsibility to protect came from Africa. And actually, the two concepts came from the same person, that is Francis Deng, which I think that, I mean, paying a tribute to the fact that he really did move forward the whole concept of both of the responsibility to protect, but living in the idea that the European Union is a safe environment, which is not. Actually, the threats on racism and xenophobia, especially thanks to the crisis in the last few years, have been increasing enormously. If we take the DIREX index about in 2010 was the last draft that they published, the collection of numbers in terms of raising up of xenophobia and racism in Europe is amazing. What is happening in Greece is amazing against the immigrants. So that's one of the main challenges that we have. The second challenge, of course, is the external action of the European Union, which is very linked with this new body that is the service, the External Action Service of the European Union. And in this sense, the Budapest Center, he's trying to give to the European Union External Action Service, but overall to the European Union foreign policy, a way ahead. Maybe a report, we're drafting a report on the capacities of the European Union in preventive mass atrocities, which is actually very important because the European Union has one of the basic tools of international development that no one else has, that is conditionality. We do help if you're able or willing to perform something to your people, especially to your people. And this links us to the overall framework of the fact, and I'm closing here, on the basic principles that the responsibility to protect is based on something that actually affects not just genocide and mass atrocities, but overall sovereignty as responsibility. We have to be able to get more aware of the fact that it's our own responsibility as citizens to demand to our own countries how to perform and how to do better. And I think that we have here an element that sometimes we do oversee, that is the importance of the European Parliament in being able to actually perform laws and effective directives that are pushing her into the sense of adopting regulations in the national dimensions. And to that, I think that the basic core of all is the pattern towards an education that gives us actually the idea of how we do have to perform as citizens. And the fact that being citizens doesn't mean just have rights, doesn't have just to mean to get a work, to get a sanitation treatment where we need one, but to become active citizens because we are part of a community. And if we cannot sustain the community by good, we cannot request the community internationally through diplomacy or else to do something for us or for others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please stay here for a moment. Thank you very much to both of you for brilliant expose. And I'm sorry that I had to confine your very penetrating analysis to a shorter time. Since we are ahead of time, I would like to take at least 2 questions, and perhaps you may wish to comment on that. And if you stay on the rostrum here, if the question is directed to Mr. Tatar, then you may come and answer. Otherwise, your colleague will answer. Who would like to ask any question? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Mary, the Program Director for Human Rights here at ICD. So thank you very much for your speech and also for the others that came previously on this incredibly important issue of genocide. And I noticed that what was following through in a lot of what was being said was this need for education and for civil responsibility and for people in their own countries to take action and to demand action from their own governments. But how can this really happen when what we see, for example, what was said before, is the case where actually children and in particular girls in Sudan, for example, are being tortured when they are trying to be educated. So how can this education happen?
I need to take another question, or I go ahead with this. I give you an example of something that we are doing and trying to perform in Africa. Sudan is part of the picture, but still we are working with them. But this is something that is happening in Uganda and in Tanzania for the moment, and in Kenya we're not following that directly, but I will give you the example of Tanzania and Uganda. I was in Kampala just a few weeks ago with the idea of being present in one of the things that I think is very important for the country and for the region. We're working together a lot with the International Conference on the Great Lakes region, together with some of the other actors that are here at the Auschwitz Institute or the Office of the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, or George Mason University. Uganda decided to create a national coordination for the prevention of genocide and mass atrocities. This coordinating body is a body that actually entails both civil society and governmental people, and the Ministry of Education, for example. I do think that one of the things we are thinking about genocide prevention and mass atrocities prevention while I'm thinking about education is that we might have, and this might be very cynical in what I say, we might have problems in educating girls in Sudan. But if I'm able to educate the boys not to actually rape women, I'm halfway succeeding something, okay? That's the point. The point is that I cannot focus just on one group and telling the girls not to get raped, because that's not effective to me. To me, it's effective to teach to the boys that actually rape is not something that needs to be performed. It's something that we are experiencing in Egypt nowadays. I mean, with the fact that the sexual harassment is something that is becoming so more and more happening, I mean, every day. And the point is that we need to educate the boys not to harass girls and not vice versa. Otherwise, we will handle into the situation of just there was 2 days ago something that was awful. But we had a court in Italy, a judge in a court in Italy on the second sentence saying to a girl that was raped by one of his colleagues at work, saying, well, but you had a skirt. And actually you were provoking the guy, so the guy won't take 14 years as it was in the first sentence, but he will just take 2, because I mean there was sexual thing, but actually you provoked him. Okay, so here is the point. I'm saying that the problems are not just outside. We are not. I mean, I'm not saying. One of the things that I wanted maybe to push on with Rebecca is that it's not about only the skin. It's about also a rule of proximity. And the rule of proximity is something that in the genocide factor is very important. It's very important. We've noted that in Rwanda, we've noted that in Bosnia, that the record of proximity, well, if they kill the neighborhood, well, I mean, he's not my family. I mean, in the moment of danger, your family is the one that counts. It's not your neighborhood. I mean, you couldn't care less, because it's something that is alien to you in that very specific moment. I hope I did answer to some extent.